One of the things that I kind of wanted to show, but I thought, well, it'll take up too much time. 1976, PBS ran a video called Schoolhouse Rock, and they had this really cute little cartoon about this bill. He says, "I'm just a bill." And one of the things that really strikes me, after having, of course, watched it back then and now being a legislator, is that Bill is a very sad character. He's sad throughout the whole video until he actually becomes a law. Now, I can really equate with that because I just ran a bill in committee, something that I'm really devoted to, which is the issue of joint custody and child custody issues, and I got voted down in committee. And it's just a bill. It's just a very sad bill. But there are successes as well. Freshman legislators sometimes ask me, and I'm in my 4th term now in the Arkansas legislature, they ask me, how do you come up with ideas for bills? I said, well, the first thing that you should do is make sure that you don't take the attitude that, well, I've got an idea, but if it was a good attitude, someone else would have already come up with it. Because there's a lot of things that we just miss. A lot of the legislation that comes through, if anyone ever sits up in one of the galleries and they listen to us and they hear about some of the bills that just the descriptions just seem to drone on, and then there's like, out of 100, there's 90 votes for it. A lot of the bills are technical changes. There's been some language that's been found to be inconsistent that we've got to try and align with other statutes. But a lot of times we come up with legislation, at least I do. I tend to be pretty controversial. I try to push the envelope a little bit. My emphasis in the legislature has been in education. So I've been fortunate to be on the Education Committee for 4 years. And one of the things that I've been really excited about working on 2 years ago and then this term is an issue where, we say in Arkansas that tourism is the number 2 industry in the state of Arkansas. And it's true. The statistics bear it out. But one of the things that we have done to harm our number 2 industry is that we have been starting school, K-12 schools, earlier and earlier in August. And that has dramatically crippled the tourism and hospitality business. So 2 years ago, I met with the governor's office, I met with the Arkansas Parks and Tourism and the Arkansas Hospitality Association, and I said, listen, I want to help you out. I've seen some of the statistics that show that we lose tens of millions of dollars just because we've got school going on in the month of August. So let's just go ahead and put legislation in that says that we'll start a week later than what we do now. And they went, oh, no, we want 2 weeks. And I said, we can't carry that. There's no way. Oh, well, we still want that. That's what the governor wants. Well, the reason I did not believe it had a chance of winning the day is because school superintendents, they look at it and they go, we can't come up with 10 days in the school calendar. There's no way that we can cut out enough days out of spring break or fall break or whatever other dates we have to make up those 10 days. But I knew that they could find 5 days. Well, the bill did pass out of committee, but it resoundingly was defeated on the House floor. And I believe it was because of the overreach. This time I came back, I put a bill out there, very skeleton form, basically pushing for a 1 week later, but didn't give a lot of detail. Now, I do that sometimes so that I can invite collaboration. And I had the bill out there. It was sitting out there for several weeks. School superintendents, school boards, associations were asking about my bill. We have some problems with it. We need it to not start until the 2021 school year. I said, I can do that. And really, the date that you've got, no sooner than the Monday before Labor Day. That's a little bit too early or too early for us to start. So could you do that? I can amend that. Well, that communicated to them that I was willing to give up some things. And then they came to me, surprisingly, one day, a school superintendent came to me and he said, have you thought about transitioning the state of Arkansas? Right now we require 178 instructional days. Of those days, we have to have 6 hours of instructional time. Have you considered transitioning to a plan that Missouri just recently adopted where we require instructional hours? Now, I can do the math real quick. 178 days times 6 is 1,068 hours. And I went, okay, so how does that help us? I started doing the math again and finding out that a school day, if it could go 15 minutes longer each school day, the district could reclaim 7 days. If they went 30 minutes longer, they could reclaim 14 days. And we can do this without affecting teacher contracts. We can do it also by saving money to the school districts, because having to cool the buildings during the month of August is their most expensive utility month. And there's all kinds of other benefits, not to mention the fact that the tourism industry is going to gain from this. So the bill is actually going to be heard in committee on Thursday. It has the support of the chairman of the committee, the commissioner of education. His staff has been working with me on it, and the school superintendents are meeting tomorrow to see if they're going to put a stamp of approval on it. Now, that's an example of how collaboration comes together and creates a good bill. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen the cartoons that say that a camel is a horse created by committee. And that's what happens a lot of times with these collaborations, that by the time you go through all of the language changes and you go through accepting these amendments and striking this information and redefining this definite term, by the time you finish, you really don't have anything, a semblance of what you'd started with. But more often than not, through this collaboration of bringing stakeholders together, and it's certainly a better process to bring the stakeholders together at first, rather than waiting like I did. But, you know, I like to, like I said, I like to push the envelope. I like to put a bill out there, file it, and have people start asking, well, what is it he's trying to do? And what can we do to make this better? And so at that point, now, they probably wouldn't even work with me trying to make it better if I have not been able to be effective in passing other legislation. And sometimes passing that legislation even though they were opposing it. And when I say they, I'm talking about school superintendents. They're one of the strongest lobbies in the state of Arkansas. I've seen it so many times on legislation that we had legislation 2 years ago that I co-sponsored that says that if a public school has an unused or underutilized school building, they have to make it available at fair market value to a charter school that's already established in the school district. Well, I started having difficulty getting some of my conservative Republican colleagues to vote with me on that. And I asked him, well, why? Why are you not supporting this? Well, my superintendent told me not to. And I had to stop him and go, do you have a charter school in your school district? I mean, really, already? Well, no. Is there any talk about a charter school in your district? No. Then this legislation will not affect you. It won't impact you at all. But with 100 members, it's difficult sometimes to walk through that process and find out what all the reasons are that different members are opposed. One thing that I've done successfully 3 out of 4 times is I've had bills, controversial education bills, that came up, say, several votes short, 48, and I needed 51. And I've been able to use a parliamentary procedure motion called the motion of reconsideration. And you can get someone that voted on the prevailing side, which in that case would have been the noes. They make a motion of reconsideration, and then you get to revote the bill. Well, what helps me with that is having a roll call that I can go through and I can see where the noes were and are these people that I can turn. I'm pretty sure I can keep the people that stuck with me, that voted with me in the first place, but I just have to find a minimum of 3, usually we'll go for 6 or 7, to get me over the top. So the legislative process, it is exhausting, especially is in the state of Arkansas, because it's a very condensed 2 to 3 month period, and then we don't meet again for a year, and then actually in a year we do fiscal issues. We don't take on any substantive policy issues. We actually just vote on appropriation bills and funding bills. So this time crunch is very tight. We go through thousands of bills in less than 90 days. And yes, it's true. I don't get to read them all. It would be next to impossible to do that. We rely on our colleagues that are maybe meeting in the committees that heard the bill initially, and then they give us feedback, one, of what the bill does, but a lot of times we also depend on the committees to properly vet the bills that shouldn't get to the House floor. They ask the tough questions. They make sure that this is not bad legislation, and if it is, and this term I've been fortunate to chair the Insurance and Commerce Committee, I've told members, I really don't want us to just be killing bills. I want us to use the committee process, just like you would in small group communication, to try and improve the bills if possible, to have open discussion. Typically, we just ask questions of the witnesses, and then we entertain testimony from members of the audience who want to speak for or against. And then I make sure that we have a period of time where we allow the members of the committee to talk, to cross-talk, and talk about what they see as problems with the bill. And before a vote ever takes place, the sponsor of the bill at the end of the committee table gets to make a decision of whether they want to pull the bill down and change it based on the feedback that's been given. So I know this is not really, exciting and sexy stuff like probably some of the other topics you've already heard, but it's the process that intrigues me. I was telling someone backstage that, I've had some great opportunities, some great experiences that somewhat prepared me for being a legislator. At one point, I was chief of staff to Governor Huckabee when he was lieutenant governor. I was a lobbyist working with insurance agents. But I can definitely say the thing that prepared me the most for being a legislator was working with college students, working with them specifically in the area of collegiate debate. Because one of the things that I had to do in teaching them was how to be able to argue both sides of any issue. And one of the things that I saw many times was that there was not a right and a wrong answer. There were just different perspectives. And so that's one of the things that I embrace. I appreciate the opportunity to come to talk to you about it. I hope that you got something out of this and you understand better the legislative process. So thank you very much.